Welcome! This episode shows how I properly completed my patio's initial framing construction, strictly in accordance with my architectural design and county construction requirements. It's absolutely critical that you or your builder strictly follow my steps in this approach. In other words, this episode shows how to accurately incorporate the paper plans into the actual three-dimensional patio structure. Like my other 5 parts, this episode will clearly show you how to meet your county's permit requirements and enable you to pass your building inspections efficiently. Most importantly, it will show you how to build a great structure that will last indefinitely. This is my 4th episode in my 6-part series on patio construction. In this effort, we'll focus on building the beams and installing the trusses and stringers. We'll then install the plywood roofing and add a protective layer of roofing underlayment felt until we can install the actual roofing. Next, we'll build the cricket, wall in the old window, and add fascia. Lastly, we'll reinforce the column and beam attachments and frame around the beams. As a potential patio builder and owner, you have 5 viable options for completing this effort. You can use them individually or use them in combinations with the other options shown here. You can perform all the work yourself as the contractor. You have the option of subcontracting some of the tough construction tasks to the experts like I did. After studying parts 1 through 6 of my series, you can use this information for developing questions, to interview your potential contractors for your patio work, and show this series to your potential contractors to define your requirements. You can ask your contractor to review parts 1 through 6 and ask him or her to design and construct a variation that matches your home and meets your requirements. Lastly, you can use my 6 patio episodes for monitoring your contractor to keep him and his construction crew honest. I started this preparation by accurately cutting off the tops of each 6x6 column at their correct lengths with my skill saw. This ensured that the tops were ready for beam installation. It also made certain that the column tops were perfectly level and precisely aligned with the beam connections to the house. I next harvested the 2x4 braces you see in the upper left photo for later use as stringers between the trusses. I then removed all of the column alignment stands you see at the bottom of each column. Next, I cut all the white decorative column covers shown in the right photo to their correct lengths with my table saw. My saw's blade with titanium teeth easily cut the decorative covers because they were made from soft aluminum. I then installed all the decorative column covers and their upper and lower caps shown in the photograph on the right. Lastly, I rented the scaffold you see in the lower photograph to facilitate lifting and positioning the 2x10 beam material, 4x8 sheets of plywood roofing shingles, and all other required heavy tools and material. Per my architectural drawing excerpts on the left, I installed the Simpson post caps and header hangers shown on the right. After completing each beam, I then installed the rigid corner brackets shown with yellow arrows in the upper right photo. I started my beam building effort per the model shown on the right with the right beam connection to the house and the left beam connection to the house. I continued building these beams and increased their lengths by perpendicularly moving away from the house. I then finished the small center beam and connected it to the left beam with the short perpendicular beam in the left photo identified by the yellow arrow. I aligned the right and left beams of the patio with their right and left wall connections to the house. Per the column and beam plan, I attached the right beam to the treated 4x6 post identified by the red arrow inside the back wall of the kitchen at this location. For details of this 4x6 post installation, see part 3 of my patio series. Per the left photo, I attached the Simpson LCE4 connector on top of the column and then attached the connector to the first 2x10 beam on top of the column. I then bolted that beam into the 2x4 on the right within the wall. On top of the nearby 6x6 column, I also attached a Simpson AC6 post cap and nailed it to the 2x10. Next, I added the 1/2 inch layer of chipboard shown here. I continued to build the beam by adding another 2x10 and one more 1/2 inch chipboard layer, and then the third 2x10. By the way, some people refer to chipboard as OSB, or Oriented Strand Board. If you're looking for it on the Home Depot or Lowe's website, I recommend that you search for OSB. As I built this beam, I nailed each new layer in place with my air-powered nail gun. This expanded the beam to a thickness of 5.5 inches, which is the same width as the 6x6 columns. I continued this effort until the beam was complete, as shown on the right. The left side of the patio attachment was much simpler. The column and beam plan calls for securing the 2x10 beam with 5/8 inch lag bolts to the studs in the wall on the left side of the house. Similar to the right beam, I built the left and center beams with additional chipboard and 2x10s and attached the finished beams to the columns with Simpson AC6 post caps. Continued until I completed all of the other beams. As shown by the red arrows, all of the beams are composed of 3 2x10s with 2 1/2 inch chipboard layers in between them. Completing each beam, I added the Simpson RCBZ corner brackets identified with these red arrows. Using a small skill saw, I cut the siding along the line defined by these red arrows to start my truss installation effort. I was very careful not to damage the siding so I could reuse the removed siding for follow-on efforts later in the project. I bolted the first truss to the upstairs wall studs of the house, as shown by the model on the left and the yellow arrows on the right. This is actually fairly easy to do for a 2-story house. If you're attaching your first truss to a single-story ranch home, it's more challenging. You'll need to remove some roofing and attach your first few trusses to the roof with stringers. Using my air-powered nail gun, I secured each truss by toenailing its outer edge to the top of the beam as shown by these red arrows. In addition, I fastened each new truss in place to the previous one with the stringer identified by the yellow arrow. I continued this effort until all of the trusses were in place. It's important for you to know where I obtained my trusses. This is the second of 4 construction areas that I subcontracted out for my patio. I purchased my trusses from a reputable truss company just outside of St. Louis that delivered them to my driveway in one load. This was the first page of my truss plan, which I included within my drawing package to the county for my building permit. As required, the truss designs were developed and certified by a registered engineer who was licensed in Missouri. I have civil and aerospace engineering degrees with courses in beam and truss design, but I'm not certified in Missouri. Nonetheless, I recommend that you similarly buy your trusses from a truss company with a licensed engineer on their staff. I paid approximately $900 for these trusses, which included 9 large and 2 small scissor trusses and 1 large and 1 small gable truss. Like my architectural drawings, these trusses were a very good investment. The small TO1 GE gable truss and the front side of the large TO2 GE gable truss are located here, and the 2 small TO1 scissor trusses are installed here. The rear side of the TO2 GE gable truss on the front of the patio is shown here. These are 4 of the 9 large TO2 scissor trusses. As I previously mentioned, I obtained these truss stringers from my column braces. The red arrows identify some of the stringers. As required by this Detail A architectural drawing excerpt, I inserted these clips between my 1/2 inch plywood roofing joints to ensure these joints remain permanently aligned. Using my air-powered nail gun, I secured the roofing plywood to their trusses below along the lines identified by red arrows. I also nailed both sides of the plywood seams and added temporary safety blocks so I could safely move around the roof. For the second of 3 areas that I subcontracted out, I opted to hire a local roofing company, which I had a good experience with, to install my roofing. They were not immediately available to install my roofing, so per their recommendation, I temporarily protected my roof with this underlayment roof felt to ensure the plywood would not warp or be damaged with exposure to the rain and sun. I temporarily secured it to the plywood roofing with these 1/2 inch thick chipboard strips. In addition, I added these 2x4 blocks so I could safely walk around the roof. I subcontracted the roof to this company because I wanted to absolutely ensure that I would not incur any water damage into my home's walls. I knew how to install flashing in the roof and wall seams. However, I knew some people who encountered terrible mold and health problems with water seeping into their walls, so I hired a company that I trusted to do this right. I included a roofing cricket in my original model and also one in my architectural drawings. A roofing cricket prevents rainwater and melting snow from seeping into this joint, penetrating the walls and generating mold. This shows how I built the cricket. I started by framing the triangular 2x4 structure in the top two photos. Next, I reinforced the structure with crosswise 2x4s in the bottom two photos. With the addition of plywood covering, flashing, and roofing tiles, this is what the cricket looks like today. This is what the upstairs window looked like after I removed one half of it for the truss installation. Using my Sawzall, I cut down the center of the joint between the two windows and permanently removed the window on the right. As shown by the upper left photograph, I framed the open window area with 2x4s and covered the outside with plywood and protective Tyvek. I then covered the inside with drywall and added window molding on the top, bottom, and right side per the photo on the right. Using the siding that I reclaimed from the truss, which I bolted to the house, I added a J-channel perimeter to the left side of the window and nailed this reclaimed siding over the old window area as shown here. Per this Detail A excerpt, I added fascia to the areas identified by the red arrows. As an option, I added these Simpson angle and T-braces that I had to special order. When the building inspector saw these, he commented that my structure was overbuilt and the patio was more likely to withstand a tornado while our house perished. Consequently, I met my goal of designing and building an incredibly durable structure. Next, I prepared the beams for this stucco covering that required perfect alignment with the column caps as shown here. I did this by framing around the beams with the 2x4s identified by red arrows. To ensure they perfectly align with the top of the column caps, I added shims behind the 2x4s as necessary. This concludes the initial framing construction for this project. At this time, I'm moving on to part 5 of my patio series, showing how I completed my final framing construction. You're more than welcome to follow. In addition, if you have a great project that you want to post on my YouTube channel, email me some pictures and a brief description of it. If it qualifies for the Let's Fix It Right standards to help others, I'll interview you over the phone as a guest do-it-yourselfer, produce a high-quality video, and post it on my Let's Fix It Right channel. For the year following this posting, I'll share 50% of the potential YouTube benefits with you. If you have any subject matter requests or recommendations, please contact me. All of this said, I recommend that you subscribe to my channel, follow my projects, and save a bundle of money doing it.